WNST, Towson, Baltimore. The Georgia World Congress all week broadcasting. You'll check it out on Facebook Live, on our YouTube WNSTV channel. All of it brought to you by our friends at Lifebridge Health Sports Medicine Institute at Foundry Row in Owings Mills. You've heard the doctors here, and I got some good words to the wise because this is one of my favorite segments of the week. Dr. Craig Bennett joins us here now from Owings Mills, where he is an orthopedic specialist. And Doc, a lot of times we're talking about athletes and surgeries and all that. Today I want to talk about winter because I had Dr. Crutchfield on 2 weeks ago. He's a skier, and we were talking about skiing and concussion and him wearing a helmet and all that good stuff. But I thought to myself, every time there's a snowstorm, the news is talking about how we shovel or all the other things that happen in winter. And I'll be honest, with the 0-degree morning we had earlier in the week, my wife needed a little extra warm-up to get onto the treadmill. I needed a little extra warm-up to get out of bed. There's something about winter that probably, I would think, causes more injuries because people are doing stuff colder. It's colder out. Everything about it isn't, we're not warmed up, right?
Yeah, it's cold outside, and to your point, warming up really is the biggest mistake, or not warming up is one of the biggest mistakes I see. So if you're going to go out and shovel snow and it's freezing outside, before you put all those layers of clothes on, go ahead and warm up in your home. Do some stretching. If you've got a light workout routine, then go ahead and do that first, and then go out and do that activity, that show snuggling that you don't do on a regular basis. So warming up beforehand, stretching beforehand, and then stretching afterwards. Even if you felt pretty good, give your back a stretch, give your hamstrings a stretch, and a little ibuprofen is probably not a bad idea if it's something you haven't done in a long time.
Well, it's interesting we even say that because it's sort of intuitive. You think about it, but I would think, and I know we're trying to ramp your business up and get you more patients, but I'm sure you're getting patients because of this very issue, and people sort of know they shouldn't have done it, or I slipped on the ice, or I should have been more careful, or whatever. I don't think you could be preventative enough, right? Like, literally, that's the way to stay away from y'all out there, right, is to do these things because it's not fun coming and visiting you. I've been that guy. I had it with my elbow. And you've helped me, and I'll get to that. But that really is the best message we could probably give anyone out there, right?
Yeah. Yep. Slow and steady, and try to prepare for everything. You can't prepare for unexpected things, but you want to do light exercise on a regular basis, at minimum 20 minutes, 3 times a week, and stretch, and just be aware of the surroundings. If it's icy out, be extra careful. Make sure you have proper shoes on. And you have to be smart about it.
Dr. Craig Bennett is here from Lifebridge Health Sports Medicine Institute. They're at Foundry Row in Owings Mills. They're our partner here. They can be your partner as well. State-of-the-art facility and world-class care. And you've seen Cal Ripken on the billboards. And I guess we got baseball on the tongue with Mike Messina this week going into the Hall of Fame. But I want to talk football with you, Doc, because you and I have talked about surgeries and football players and baseball players and elbows and arms and all the things that you do for a living. Next week, I'm going to be on Radio Row at the Super Bowl. I will have many doctors stop by, many sort of athletes in various points of disrepair, either cognitively, emotionally, physically broken down. You've been at this a long time, and the NFL will talk, and I'm sure Roger Goodell next week will get together and say, we're making the game safer. If you're sitting with me next week at the Super Bowl, I would be asking you about that, so I'm going to ask you about it right now. Are there parts of this, and I talked to Dr. Crutchfield about the concussion part and the helmet and the rest of that, but we just saw this kid, Alan Hearns, get ripped up on the field and knees and turf and all of that, and friends of mine that played back in the era where Veterans Stadium was like concrete. So I know that inherently in the NFL, because of money and because of lawsuits, they're trying to do better. But from an orthopedic standpoint, not concussion, but from where you stand, is it getting better? I mean, what are the things that encourage you about what's happening with the NFL?
So safety is something that the NFL seems to be very, very aware of. So specifically from an orthopedic standpoint, addressing some of the rules and being very, very particular and careful to make certain that they're followed is something that I think you're seeing, so very specifically. Hits to the lower extremity for an athlete, particularly the quarterback, when he's unprotected. Those are called very, very closely now. And so while the focus has been on the head and concussions, even from a leg standpoint, they've been much more strict about the calls. And so from that standpoint, I think it's safer. In terms of overall awareness, orthopedics our orthopedic injuries are the main injuries these athletes have. Overall awareness amongst teams when, an athlete's injured or hurt, I think there's a little bit more of a tendency now to say, okay, this person's not able to perform at a maximal level. We're going to leave him out, even if it means potentially compromising our result for this upcoming game. I think it is safer than it was 15, 20 years ago.
Well, we certainly feel that with the concussion thing. I mean, it's all very obvious when they run into the tent and they say he's in the protocol, right? So we all know what that is. And when that player doesn't play next week, we don't call him soft anymore. We don't say he got dinged anymore. We say he had a brain injury, right? I mean, at least that's the way Crutchfield makes sure I call it that at this point. But from the orthopedic side, it's like, well, he's got a tweak, he's got a groin, he's got a upper body, if you're hockey, or lower body or whatever it is, and he's 2 to 4 weeks. And that's where guys like you come in and where the coaches are like, hey, Doc, can you take that 3 to 6 and make it 2 to 4? I mean, 20 years ago there was more of that going on. I would agree that everyone understands the value of the athlete and getting them at 100%, that playing them at 75 or 80% is not good for them. It's not good for the organization. It's just not good. And I think that we've moved – I guess spiritually, coaching has moved that way, but it probably is top-down management, right? Where the owners are, and the general managers and the doctors and everybody and the public has been involved in this to say we don't want hurt athletes out there getting more hurt.
Absolutely. So let's be specific. 15 years ago, if an athlete had a shoulder injury and tore his labrum, and he was able to range the shoulder quite well and he had regained his strength, then there was more of a tendency to say, okay, yes, the labrum in the shoulder is torn, but let's get through this season, put him in a harness, and fix him when the season is over. Now, I see more of a tendency to where it's the athlete's choice. And if the athlete says, I want to get this fixed now, I don't want to play on an injured shoulder, I don't think that athlete's going to be questioned. Whereas 15 years ago, there would have been more of a tendency to question his toughness, for example.
Well, he would now say, I don't want to live in pain the rest of my life when I'm 52 years old and not be able to pick up my grandkids, right? Like that is something that is absolutely spoken about now, where in 1978 it might have been the player and his wife deep and dark at night and they can't tell anybody about it, right?
In 2000, there was less of a tendency to have the surgery as opposed to now. So
well, a great example, Doc, would be Peter Boulware, and I was here for all of that. Peter Boulware played a whole season with one arm, and it was very obvious to everyone. You don't see that happen anymore.
Correct. I mean, I'm not saying you don't see it at all, but you don't see it as much.
Dr. Craig Bennett is here at Lifebridge Health Sports Medicine Institute. They're at Foundry Row in Owings Mills. I'll be at the Super Bowl all next week. They are providing our coverage, and, of course, they're the doctors that we trust around here. A couple things on a personal level, because we've done a little football and done a little wintry here. My left arm, you said something, and I know how smart you are, and I trust every doctor. I'm 50 years old. I wouldn't be in front of you and using your time if I wasn't going to take the pill, do what you tell me to do. I know better than that at this point. My restless youth is over with now. We're only immortal for a limited time. I learned that. But, you gave me this. I called it the Stan the Man Stasiak heart punch thing because, in the old days, the wrestlers would wear those. And, I put it on my arm, and I sleep with it every night. And I've done this for 2 weeks. And it's almost like a miracle drug to some degree without doing anything. You were explaining to me how sleeping can injure you. If we've all woken up with a stiff neck, back, whatever, because we slept wrong, I think I was sleeping wrong every single night for the last 9 months, and that screwed me up, Doc.
Yeah, so what you had specifically was epicondylitis in your elbow.
Don't tell anyone.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I take that back. And so, controlling how much stress goes on your wrist at night and limiting that will limit the amount of force that you get on the elbow. So, and you mentioned this, a strained neck. And so, yes, absolutely. When you've got an injury, you've got to think about all aspects of managing that and, go see your doc. And sometimes you're surprised because most people who aren't involved in this don't think, wow, controlling my wrist is going to affect how my elbow does.
Well, the worst part for me is I'm now so old officially that I have to go see my orthopedic specialist to say, I'm not sleeping properly. I don't know how to lay down at night and sleep 6 hours because I don't know where to put my arms. So
you're not old. You're mature.
Well, when I saw you, I had the gray beard coming in, so you saw all that wisdom coming in. Doc, love you, appreciate you. Thanks for fixing me up. Certainly thanks for everything you guys are doing for my wife. By the way, my wife visited Charm City Run on Wednesday morning. Josh over there hooked us up with these incredible shoes, so we're building the building blocks. She wants to run a half marathon. You know this. You visited with her. One last thing, New Year's resolutions, and this isn't like as much a New Year's resolution. I've been very upfront about my wife and I going to Tony Robbins and just trying to put bucket list items and what we're going to do with the rest of our lives here this year. She wants to run this half marathon. I'm out visiting you because I'm old and falling apart, or wise, as you would say, with my left elbow, and she's going to do this thing. So the first thing is the sock, right? It's right back to John Wooden. How do we put our sock on the right way? How do we get the right shoe? And Crutchfield's going to put her over at Parisi, and we're going to put her a thing. But from an orthopedic standpoint, what would you advise someone who says, not a marathon, because my wife's a high achiever, as you well know. What if somebody just wants to get back to running a couple of miles and get in shape and maybe do a 5K or 10K sometime in the spring or the summer? What's the first thing you say to them beyond shoes, sock, get a checkup, make sure you're doing okay, make sure you're eating right, all of that? But what would your word to the wise be to her about starting to run again, being a 2-time cancer survivor?
So like we said at the onset, in regards to the shoveling of the snow, you want to start gradually. You want to warm up properly, and there's a tendency, particularly with a marathon or an event like that, for someone to say, okay, this is what my plan is. This is where I want to be in 2, 3, 4, 5 months. And they circle that date, and they say, okay, I'm going to do this regardless. You got to listen to your body, and sometimes your body says no. And you want to make a nice, realistic schedule and gradually ramp up to your goal. And if you need to do it later in the year or another year, then accept that. Don't push through pain in regards to this kind of activity.
Because it'll only get worse, right? Then I got to come see you.
Absolutely.
Hey, thanks for helping me. Thanks for all you do. Thanks for making time. Thanks for everybody at Lifebridge Health Sports Medicine Institute, Foundry Row in Owings Mills. Dr. Kevin Crutchfield will join us 2 weeks from now. I'll be at the Super Bowl all next week. Dr. Craig Bennett, have a great day, and I think of you every night. You're the last thing on my mind before I go to bed, putting the brace on. My wife's like, "You got the brace on?" I'm like, all right. She's like, "You won't be able to move your arm." And I'm like, all right, I hear Bennett on my shoulder, pitchforking me here. Thank you very much. I'm feeling better.
Right,
appreciate you.
You
got it. Dr. Craig Bennett joining us here from Lifebridge Health Sports Medicine Institute and Foundry Row in Owings Mills. We're going to be at Super Bowl 53 all next week. You're going to see all the celebs coming by. I'm trying to see who all I have on my schedule already. Let me. I'm just going to read some names off here so y'all know what's going on. First off, Charlie Batch checked in. He's coming by next week. Jamal Lewis is coming by next week. Shannon Sharp is coming by next week. So it's a little Raven reunion. Ryan Leaf going to be visiting with us as well. Who else is? Solomon Wilcott's coming by on Wednesday. Jeff Garcia, be good to visit with him. Always love my conversation with him. Eric Hipple, my pal Randy Grimes, who played for the Buccaneers, who helps former athletes get better. Nate Boyer going to be joining us next week as well. Jordan Palmer. So the list is getting longer. You never know when a Dan Marino or a Terry Bradshaw are going to drop by. Dr. Oz, whomever. Oh, Gary Vaynerchuk is coming by next week as well, too. So Gary V, we're going to talk about the Jets and wine and stuff like that. So that's my best Gary V. I'm working on that. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We'll see you in Atlanta next week. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST, Taos in Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.